Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, where two busy dads get games to the table by any means necessary. Check us out, along with other great podcasts, at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 122, recent Hotness and Tastemakers in board games. Hey everybody, welcome back to Every Night is Game Night. This is Anthony, once again with Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
All right, guys, we are back. We have a normal-ish episode. Weird.
Crazy, right? Normal episode. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the roundtables and whatever, like the review of packs and all that kind of stuff. But finally, no cons, no doctor's appointments. We were just complaining about that on the call. Just a nice regular episode with two busy fathers trying to get gaming in as much as possible.
Yes, and you will hear all about that as we describe the games we're going to talk about today, because it's a theme in there. It's a theme.
Well, I mean, we've managed to get, these are a couple of games that people are playing, like, you know, they recently delivered and hot and all that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. No, these are recent. These are good. It's just, how they got to the table, who got them to the table, how often they got to the table. So, yeah, it's a funny thing. We're talking about Architects of the West Kingdom. We're talking about Cerebria today. So we'll get into those and, who got to play each of them accordingly.
Right.
And then, you have a discussion topic for us too, right?
Yep. We're talking about tastemakers and board games. So I have made a New Year's resolution. I am going, whatever we have a discussion topic, I'm going to post in our Facebook group, Every Night is Game Night Facebook group. Please go join that. We've had people trickling in. Maybe at some point we should run a contest to get more people trickling in. When I get over this dad brain, I'll try to get myself together and, make something else happen. But I like to post in this, and I like to post in a Facebook group when people are coming through, giving some interesting opinions. This one, the Tastemakers subject, I'm always interested because it's kind of, it's everywhere. Like the tastemakers are everywhere. Like you have them in, dining and, TV, movies, there's always critics, right? And how do they influence us? And I'll talk a little bit about how some critics influence me approaching some of these games. So it got me thinking, and we're going to hear from you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive right in. I'm going to kick things off here. I'm going to talk about Architects of the West Kingdom.
Hold on.
What?
But first...
Oh, yes.
We are going to get to Liz in the Kickstarter segment. You thought we forgot about Liz. You haven't heard from her in a couple of weeks. We had Christmas. We had a special episode, but she is back. And so is Kickstarter. There is so much stuff that is launching, will be launching in the next little while. Liz, go ahead and hit us up with a project. Hey, this is Jason in editing. This is not Liz. Liz is stuck in Israel. Not stuck in Israel. She's having a great time. I totally forgot when we recorded the episode. So we will hopefully have Liz back next week. She's much better at these than I am. But I did want to share with you a campaign that caught my eye. It is called Dicetopia. Dicetopia was released last year on Kickstarter. The expansion is currently on there called Roll with the Punches. It'll have about 10 or 11 days to go by the time we launch this episode. It is a worker placement, dice placement, more of a 20-minute experience, really fast, taking a lot of the elements of worker placement games like Kingsburg or Alien Frontiers. I love Alien Frontiers. I really do. But it's hard to get to the table. Big board, takes a long time to play, takes a long time to teach. But this one seems to strip down all of those elements and bring you, something a little bit lighter, punchier, faster. The expansion seems to add some wild dice and everything. And it looks like, although it's not listed on the main page, the designer is working on a solo mode, getting feedback from the community. Check that out over on the BGG page. So go ahead and take a look at that one. It is not that expensive to go all in. To go all in is about $47, so it seems like a pretty good deal. So go ahead and look for Dicetopia. Happy gaming. Anthony, I was very rude in interrupting your description of Architects of the West Kingdom. Was this Kickstarted?
It was not.
It was
not. Was it?
Oh no, I don't know. I know the game now by the same designer is being kickstarted, right?
Yeah, it's hard because he got his start in Kickstarter. This is Garphill Games, Shep Phillips, and Raiders of the North Sea, right? Which is famous as the first Kickstarter game to be nominated for a Spiel Award, and was picked up by Renegade. Has been super successful. It's like everybody's go-to game now for worker placement. And so there was a whole trilogy of those, and they were all very successful. Architects of the West Kingdom is the start of a new trilogy of games. And this one came out relatively recently. It was Kickstarted, so glad you cut in there. That was earlier this year, and it is also being distributed by Renegade. So the thing about this game is you probably heard about it through some kind of hyperbole, either in that is the most innovative worker placement game ever made in the history of games, which is not, but it's good. Or it's just another worker placement game. I don't know what everybody's up in arms about, which is not. It's pretty good.
Yes.
So it is, just to put it bluntly up front, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. And so I'll just run through real quick what makes it unique and why it kind of does fit somewhere in the middle there in terms of mechanics. It is a worker placement game. You start the game with quite a bit more workers than you would normally. You get 20 of them. And the idea here is that you're investing workers. You're not just placing them as you go. You're building them up in certain locations to make those actions more powerful. So if you put them in a place to say, let's say, get wood, the first time you get one, then the next time if you put another guy there, you get two, then the next time you get three, and so on and so forth. And so there's a lot of different ways you can kind of manipulate that and work on that to try to maximize how much stuff you get back. But the trick to the game is other people can go to the town center, it's one of the locations, and capture workers. So if you've left a whole bunch of stuff out there because you're just trying to load up on whatever resources or actions you're trying to take, then people can capture your workers, put them on their own player board. They're going to make money when they throw those workers into jail. They don't have to throw them in jail right away. They can leave them on their board and hole up your workers for a while. It's an interesting mechanic in a lot of ways just because it's a good money engine. It encourages people to go out there and capture each other's workers, which of course clears the board, which of course keeps things moving. But at the same time, it also makes it a little bit of press your luck in terms of how many workers you want to put in any one location to stockpile up and power up your actions. There's also this virtue track that you'll be moving up and down on. The higher you go, the more points you're going to get towards the end of the game. The lower you go, you possibly lose some points, but you also, at certain points, stop paying taxes, which is kind of cool. There are certain actions on the board that you pay for, but then you also pay tax, and there's a location where all that tax money goes. If you have super low virtue, you don't have to pay taxes. So, or you choose not to pay taxes, I guess, thematically speaking.
You have shell companies, you have offshore, like havens in Scotland or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're an American businessman. So there, other than that, I mean, it's fairly basic stuff. You're trying to recruit, apprentices, assistants who give you extra bonuses when you take certain actions. You're trying to build things. And the game's timer is based on the building. So when you're building stuff, you can put out your own building cards, which have either end of game bonuses or give you certain, extra effects as you take actions, or you can work towards the cathedral, which is kind of this shared track in the middle where you move your way up these different tiers. Every time you do a build action, though, you're going to put one of your workers down onto a permanent space, and as that fills up, the game shortens. So once it's entirely full based on the number of players that are in the game, you're going to wrap up the game, and that's going to be it. And of course, you have less workers if you do a lot of these build actions. So it encourages everybody to kind of do it equally. And that's pretty much the gist of the game. It's not super complicated. Like most worker placement games at this weight, everything you need to know is on the board. And it's really just a matter of remembering a few little quirky rules here and there, like how to get your guys back from the guardhouse, how much to pay if you want to buy them from there or just from someone else's board because they've been stockpiling your workers, how to generate the money. That kind of stuff is, important to kind of keep an eye on in terms of the rules. So there's a little bit of fiddliness in here in certain places. But for the most part, putting guys out, investing your workers, generating resources, building stuff, occasionally capturing or being captured, and there you go. That's Architects of the West Kingdom. You played this one, right?
Yes, I have. Of course, solo, because I don't have friends anymore that I have access to. Unfortunately. But no, it does have a solo mode, and it has a bot. And the bot is an Automa. So it is a non-Morton et al. Over at the Automa Factory, Automa deck. But I thought it was really cool, because it works like the viticulture bot. So it basically just takes up spaces or, does certain things, but you can't block spaces here like you could in viticulture. But here it's it's gathering points, and it can also trigger, the capturing of the workers kind of on its own. It's a little bit random. Like in a multiplayer game, you can kind of predict when somebody's going to capture your stuff because if somebody gets 3 and it's like, oh my God, but in the bot, you can kind of time it so that, I've seen a bunch of town center action cards already. I think let me just kind of rush, put 5-6 workers on the wood and get a whole bunch of wood before he gets town center again. So you can kind of play the bot a little bit, but it's actually super smooth. And, I liked it. It was not a lot of overhead, and it did what it needed to do to, kind of simulate an opponent. And what it also has this idea where it changes. So when you go through the deck, you may have put certain kind of quote unquote advanced bot cards in the discard pile. You shuffle those in, and it actually kind of makes a developing bot where it has these advanced actions in there where it'll build a cathedral faster or it'll do whatever. So thank you for that, Automa. It actually opened up the game for me. I thought that was pretty cool. Did you play with the bot?
I did. Yeah. I liked it a lot. I've actually recently kind of been souring a little bit on these hyper complicated Automas where I have to reread the rule book every time I play it because they're hard to get out. You don't want to leave it on the table for 3-4 days, and I just cannot remember the rules. It's a challenge, right? So anytime a bot is relatively straightforward, not a ton of overhead, just you read what's on the card, it's clear what it wants you to do, and you just do that. I like that a lot, and this one definitely does that. And it helps that the core mechanics of the game are just interesting. I like worker placement, I always have, but I'll be the first to admit it's getting a little stale. A lot of games try to be look at this innovative mechanic, and it's just we tweaked one little thing, or it's worker placement with deck building. You're that's not a new mechanic. You're just mashing stuff up. This one really did something kind of unique and interesting. Now, like I said at the top of the review, I don't think it's mind-blowing. I don't think it's revolutionary. I don't think it changes worker placement games necessarily, but I can understand why some people who are just bored with Lords of Waterdeep are like, wow, this is really, really good, and it's just a unique, different way to do this that I really enjoy. You're not just thinking about people blocking your spaces, you're thinking about how to invest and take careful actions to maximize the value while also mitigating the chances that someone else comes in and knocks you out, or in the case of the solo game, that the bot pulls that town center card and clears off that space that has the most workers on it. So I really, really enjoy it. And unlike a lot of other medium-ish games that are this footprint, the solo game's made it out, several times now, which is always a good sign.
So I think of this game. Okay, this is not an exciting game to me. Worker placement is kind of played just as a thing. So it's almost like gruel to me. Okay, it does a job. It fills you up and everything. What this game does, how it separates itself and why people are excited, is it kind of gives a play experience, two different play experiences that aren't usually present in worker placement. One is that pressure luck, like you were mentioning. Ooh, how many workers can I place into this? Can I get away with this 4th worker in the wood, and I can get all this wood, and I can finish, just have it stockpiled and, change it for points or build these buildings. Ooh, I can make a 5th one. And that's very exciting. It's solo or multiplayer. And that excitement is usually not present in a worker placement game. And then the other thing is that there's a mischievous side to it. Sometimes I had that same feeling when I'm playing a Munchkin, or I'm playing the Grim Forest, was a one from last year, where it's not mean. I wouldn't call it mean to obviously if somebody has 4 workers at a place, they're gonna get locked up. But you could kind of pay extra money to capture more workers from either from other spaces, or another group of workers or something like that. So you can pay money and say, I'm going to capture these 4, but I'm also going to capture this 1. And then your opponent's going to be like, why? What? That was unnecessary. You're like, I know what you're planning. I see what buildings you have. And you never get that in a worker placement game. So I think when people are saying, oh man, this is such a great worker placement game, they're saying that the little spice that was added to this is like 85% every game you've ever worker placement game you've ever played, but that spice to it, if you like that, that's why people are really digging this game, why this game is kind of moved ahead of the pack, so to speak. Personally, I don't, that's not how my fun. I'm a cooperative gamer. But I recognize that spice was exactly why people are, digging this game. You're like a low interaction guy. So I don't know if that was like the draw for you. It sounds like, you're okay with it, but not like blown away.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not a big Take That fan, and not that this is Take That, but it is definitely high interaction for what is essentially a Euro mechanic game.
Right.
But it never felt mean. I mean, it can be mean, like you said. It can be made
It's
mean.
mischievous.
Yeah,
it's mischievous. Like
exactly.
it's fun. Yeah.
But it's built into the mechanics in such a way, like games that just try to throw an interaction, and then the result is that here's a bunch of mechanics, and then occasionally someone can come wipe away what you did. I'm like, that's awful. Like, that's the kind of game I dislike, because it removes actions from you and it punishes you punitively.
Right.
Maybe another player doesn't get punished, right? So a lot of area control games are like that. This game isn't like that because it's balanced in such a way that if you put a bunch of workers in one place, of course someone's going to capture them. They have to. It's a money engine too on top of it, and you're going to capture back because why would you not?
Right.
It's not like, oh, maybe 3 or 4 times a game somebody's going to do something mean. It's not like the asteroid cards in Terraforming Mars, which are just mean for no reason, right?
You were working on all those plants.
I never build plants in that game for that exact reason. If there's more than 3 players, don't do plants. But
yes,
so it really works. I don't mind it at all. But at the same time, I've played with a couple people who just don't want that kind of interaction in a Euro game, and I respect that. And of course, they're not as interested in this as they would be if it didn't have that. But if it didn't have that, it wouldn't be all that interesting of a game, I don't think. So, yeah, I'm a fan of it. I can see why some people are a lot higher on it than I am, but I do really enjoy it.
Yeah. So at 7 out of 10 for me, solid, good. I'm happy. I'm happy people are happy. It has a replica to play experience that I'm not particularly interested in, but it does what it does very well. So that was Architects of the West Kingdom. Okay, we now have a much more complicated game.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I had back this. We did a preview series on it, and it just came in. It took me 2 game nights just to learn, and then I was able to get some plays. This is Cerebria, The Inside World, designed by Richard Amen and Victor Peter. Solo mode by Every Night is Game Night Facebook group member Nick Shaw and also David Tercey. Published by Mind Clash Games. So this game they pitched it as Inside Out, the board game. So Inside Out is the Pixar movie about your psyche, like it kind of breaks it up into these characters, like, there's happy and there's the gloomy. So this is like this kind of trying to replicate that, where it's like, okay, there are these 2 emotions in your psyche competing for your attention, so there's happiness and then there's sadness. And, the way I put it in my therapy sessions, it's like, are you going to get on the happy bus or the sad bus? Well, now you can play that out in this board game. So this is a team-based, objective-based area control game. There's your jargon. But I think, this game is so hard to describe, so I'm not going to do a good job. I'm going to just do the best I can to kind of tell you about how this game feels. And then what this game feels like at its very, very core is a tug of war game. The main board has 5 zones, and you're going to be taking actions. You're going to be playing cards. And you're going to be trying to control zones. You're going to try to control the 5 zones, or maybe the 5 frontiers, because you can actually also control the space between the zones. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish dominance in these zones in a tug of war fashion, and what's tug of war? Tug of war is like these very kind of incremental, like, okay, I tug, and then, people tug back. So it's like, it's not going to be this one thing where it's like, you're going to just overwhelm your opponent, like in a regular area control game. It's like, I control most of the board, blah, blah, blah. It's this game where it's a game of inches, we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that experience in a second, because a very famous tastemaker had something to say about that. We'll get to that. So that's the overall vibe of the game. How does it actually play? On your turn, you have 10 actions available to you. And this is a team-based game. You can actually play it 2v2. I prefer it 1v1. Sorry about that. I prefer it just kind of a 2-player game. 4 players, it can get a little bit, get a little bit lost, but it definitely works as a team versus team game. What you're going to do is you have 10 actions available to you, and 5 of the actions involve, actions on your personal board, and they involve manipulating your spirit. So your spirit is going to be traveling around the board, and you're going to be moving, you're going to be playing a card into a certain frontier, and by playing that card, you'll be activating powers and trying to, gain control of an area and everything. I'm totally oversimplifying it. And then there's 5 global actions. And that's basically how you manipulate the resources of the game. So in order to play a card, you need a certain amount of willpower. In order to, have to turn your willpower into this other resource called essence, blah, 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 blah. So every turn you have these, that's a lot of options, like 10 options for 3 actions. It's like, wow. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to like find that combination of actions that will absolutely maximize what impact you're having on the board. So, it's kind of inches thing. So like you can go out a place and play a card and control a zone, but it's like, okay, if I buff this action, because you can buff actions as well, I could move a little bit further, play a card, control that other zone, take it away from you, and get 2 more willpower. So it's like the very kind of subtle move that you're going to try to do in the game. So I really, really kind of dug that. What you're doing, you're not just like doing it for, endlessly. Every once in a while, you're going to trigger a scoring round, which is kind of this, you check your objectives. So like there's common objectives. Everybody's trying to achieve, who has the most fortresses. Like you build little scoring fortresses. Who has the most control of frontiers? Who has the most control of zones? That's an objective. So you're going to try to score an objective. You're also going to have a pile of personal objectives. So if you score that, and if you achieve those things, you get to like kind of make this little tower in the middle of the board, which is your ego. I don't know what. I think they, like when they were on the previous series, they were talking about how they wanted the scoring to kind of pop visually. They totally didn't need it. You could just write it on a piece of paper. But, it's Mind Clash. And you guys have played Anachrony. The game is crazy with all that stuff in it. And this game is no different. So they made the scoring an obelisk, basically, that you can build in the middle of the board. Once you finish the obelisk, during a successive series of scoring rounds, or you run out of objectives, then that's the end of the game. Again, terrible description, because this game kind of defies description. And as Anthony will tell you in a little bit, it defies learning. It's very frustrating on that end.
Yeah.
But I hope I've delivered like a sense of it. Like it's card play. It's maximizing your action on a turn-to-turn basis. This game is very tactical. Very tactical. Like especially in a 4-player game, you can play your cards and make your changes, and then the game will come around to you, and the game state is completely different. And a lot of strategic gamers don't like that. I mean, because it is that type of game. It's a very, it's not an engine builder. You can build yourself up a little bit. You can improve your cards, you can improve your actions, but you have to react to what's on the board. You have to do the best turn. I prefer that. Like, it has kind of a 70% tactical, 30% strategic kind of ratio. I like that. I'm good. And, normally I don't like games this complicated, but I thought it worked over here. Kind of reminded me of Race for the Galaxy. Like, a lot of symbology, card play. You play a card, it's like, what's this? What did I just do? Oh, that makes sense. And it kind of clicks after a little while. I love it. I love it. I got so charmed by it. As hard as it was to learn, it just hit me right in my bullseye once I finally overcame the barrier to it. I love the area control. I love the card play. I love the powers. I love the symbology. Once you kind of get it, it makes sense. I love the tactical nature of it. I love if you wanted to do a thing, you're never frozen out of the thing that you want to do. You can always do something. It's just a question of how do you do it. So I know I'm comparing it to all my favorite games. I'm going to compare it to Mage Knight now. I know, Mage Knight, but in the sense that once you get yourself going in Mage Knight, You have a bunch of resources, and it's not about what can I do. It's what I can do 7 things. How am I going to do it the most effectively? And I got that feeling from the very first turn of this game. I have 7 options. I can approach it all sorts of ways. How can I do the best thing and leave myself with resources, or leave myself in a good position where you have to play defense on me? And if you lock me out of a way of doing things that I was planning, I can shift and I have other resources so that I can do something else cool. So just for all those reasons, I'm really thrilled with the game. It is just a really awesome. I loved it. And I would not have been able to get it to the table if it wasn't for the solo mode. Yes, you are here for the solo mode. Hey, Nick, I know you're a listener to the show. I wanted to share some of my thoughts on the solo mode. It's a kind of quasi-automa thing. So yeah, it's an automa in the sense that it's a deck of cards, and each time you flip a card, it kind of tells you what to do. Only it's this kind of like double-sided thing. So you're following... half of the cards will have like the actual actions. We'll have a list of 3 actions, and then another half of the other card will tell you which of those 3 actions to do. And the actions mirror what you can do. So it will move, it will, improve itself, it will, play cards or whatever it is, kind of top deck a card into a zone. So, very simple things. It's kind of doing the same things that the game is doing, which is a commendable achievement because this game is doing a lot and the bot follows it. It's not like a dumbed down experience. It actually does things that kind of make sense. So I really liked it. I'm going to keep on playing it. At the end of the day, I don't want to say that this was, that this is bad at all. And this is a good. My one criticism of the bot is it's kind of complicated. I found it kind of flowcharty. So I'm not a war gamer, and I recognize that this is, as far as this is a tug of war, there's a little bit of like kind of war gaminess going on, or at least evocative of that. So there's a lot of like, okay, if the bot meets you at this interaction point, then it will do this. And if it meets you in this way, do this and do this. Pretty much every single time the bot interacts with you, there's this kind of like priority system. And usually it'll say something like, do the thing that hurts you the most. Do the thing that, or like, because it's not really scoring. It's, it's trying to do its thing. But do the, like in a time or in a case where, it could choose between 2 zones, choose the zone that hurts you the worst. And first of all, you're making a choice for the bot, which I never really like kind of love because it adds overhead. Second of all, just the game experience of because you have to control the bot, and you have to intentionally, okay, what hurts me worse? I will do that. I'd rather just have the bot do stuff and not have to think about it. And if it hurts me, it hurts me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And, because it almost kind of simulates more of a human feeling that way, because in a lot of, like in the human game, sometimes you'll, the guy will go after you, but sometimes the person will do something that benefits himself or herself and leave you alone because they're trying to accomplish their objective. For the bot, they're not really trying to accomplish their objective, or, I mean, they are, but in a looser way, and it's more aggressive, and it's more like, okay, you choose to do the thing bad to yourself. As a game experience, a little bit of overhead, a little bit complicated. I don't know if the solo is like a draw in a sense. I mean, some people, like if they like the direct combat type of thing, and they are more used to the more kind of involved wargamer flowcharty bot. If you are, then yes, this is no question. For me, I'm a little bit more kind of like looser, like we talked about with architects. Flip a card, do a thing, go. That's kind of the more bot that I'm used to. But again, it's a player experience. Overall, this bot is an achievement, and I'm glad it's here, and I'm going to keep playing it. Anthony, were you even able to penetrate the box?
No.
Oh, no.
This thing is a hot mess. It's a hot mess of too many components, too many rules. Rules are not well written. Everything has a weird name. They're trying to tie it into the mechanics. Just call it what it is. It's a card, right? Come on.
Yeah, a gem. They could have called it a gem and not a willpower. They could have called it a bead and not an essence. Like, yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, which is fine. It's what Mind Clash does. And I kind of complained about the same thing with Anachrony, except in the end I loved Anachrony, so I forgave it, as is often the case with games like this. So I have no opinion. I might love it. I might hate it. Who knows? I don't know if I'm ever going to play it at this point, unless someone teaches it to me. I'm not. I set this thing up. It took up my entire dining room table. I was like, wow, I don't even think I could take this to game night. It's so big. And then I spent maybe 2 or 3 hours trying to bash through the rules and figure it out in between various other things, and kind of gave up and put it away.
I can't believe it. I'm over here singing its praise and it's like, get this out of here. Next.
It's just,
okay.
Life's hard, man. It's a game once you spend that much time learning it. Like, there's a lot of GMT games I'm sure I'd love too, but I don't have time for that.
So okay, it landed in my sweet spot. I love card play. I just love it, full stop. I'm not an area control guy, but I'm a tactical guy. Like I can play, like, there's a Vlada Chivato game, Tashkalar. I don't know if you know Tashkalar.
Yeah, I've played it. It's very abstract, right?
It's super abstract, super tactical. Like, I mean, just like, you go and don't even you walk away, get a sandwich and let the other opponent go. Like, it doesn't matter because the board state changes so much. I don't like it when it's that much. I do like a little bit of strategy, and there's no strategy here. Like there is, like you have to be able to build your personal area in a certain way. The strategic part I could think is in your personal area, but on the board, like that is going to change. Like you are going to have at the end of your turn, you're going to control 3 zones, 3 frontiers, and then your opponent goes, he's going to take over a zone in a frontier. It's just going to, and you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's nothing really lasts in this game. And that kind of, I guess, since you haven't played, this game defeated you.
Yeah.
We'll move over to the discussion topic because when I got to Tom Vassel's review, so I was curious, I got the game. Tom was one of the only people that had reviewed the game. So I, popped it on. He did not like it. I mean, he thought it was okay. And I think he acknowledged that this game is for certain people, that they're going to love it, AKA me, who loves card play and tactical play and all that good stuff. But his big thing, or one of his big things was like, he didn't like like you were saying before, Anthony, like, in terms, the area control, you can have basically your entire turn, quote unquote, wiped out after the next person goes, because the game is so tight. So like if you're controlling 3 zones, at the end of your opponent's turn, they're going to be controlling 3 zones if they did it right. Or, they're going to be like a little bit powered up, or, they're going to like make 1-2 part of their zone is impregnable. So you kind of like walls you in. Like it's very tight spaces. It doesn't make you feel very awesome. Like, when we play these games, we want to be able to like kind of have a big impact, right? Why do you play Euros, man? Like, your beginning turns are weenie, but then at the end, it's like boom, 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 score, 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 score. That feels great. You will not get that here. You will not get that cascade of scoring or anything like that. And he kind of put that out there, and I found that it affected me in terms of my approach to the game. Like I was actually kind of like, am I gonna like this? Tom didn't like it, and I guess I understand his reasons. I don't just like listen to him, but like I listened to his reasoning. And what it turned out was he described a part of the game that's definitely there, but the way he approached it was like, that was his kind of non-negotiable. And what ended up happening was I liked the thing that he didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that experience, like listening to a reviewer. But I was really surprised, and it just kind of, it lit for me. It's like, I really came at this with like a pretty negative attitude because of this review, and I'm glad I had played it. And it got me thinking, like, how often does that happen? How often do Tastemakers affect how I'm approaching a game? So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Yeah,
man, I think it's certainly, like, early on in my life especially, it's something that would happen all the time. And you have limited time especially, you look up, hey, I want to read a new book. Okay, what are the editor's choices in the paper this week, for this month? I'm not going to look at all the books. I'm going to look at the ones that have already been curated for me. These are the best picks, I want to watch a new movie. What has a Rotten Tomatoes score over 70%? I want to play a new video game. What's on Metacritic over 75, 80%? And I think it's only been exacerbated by the internet, because you have things like that. You have review aggregators for basically all types of media.
Everything.
Yeah.
Metacritic and yeah.
Yeah, so it's really easy to just go in there and be like, oh, yeah. And they're really deceptive, too. Like, you look at a Rotten Tomato score, it could have 90%, but the average review is like a 6.5. But technically, they're all positive. And so it's easy to fall down that rabbit hole and stop thinking for yourself and stop actually looking at the merits of the review and like, oh, this type of person doesn't like area control games, but I love them, so maybe I should not take his review with anything more than a grain of salt. And so I was bad about that early on, but doing the podcasts, I'm much more aware of it because I get comments from people that are similar to that effect, or, hey, you said you hated this, but I love it. And I'm like, yeah, that happens. So
yeah,
that's part of the game. You know, it's an opinion. It's not nothing of what we're doing is objective. It's all subjective. And I think that's important to remember because if you forget that, it's easy to miss out on stuff you might like or buy stuff that you really won't like, which is an even bigger mistake for a lot of us.
And it goes the other way too. It's like I had a publisher on who shall remain nameless, and we were talking about Architects, which is the other reason I wanted to put these two together, just to kind of note that Architect is getting a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. It reached a lot of top 10 lists from the year, so because it came out so late and people were so impressed with it. And this publisher was telling me, it's like, this game sucks. This game's it's Architects, but you're all arresting each other. How does that make any sense? Why are you stabbing each other in the? I thought you were building a city, for crying out loud. Like, she could not get over, or he could not get over the thematic disjunction that was created by capturing workers and trying to build stuff, and it didn't get into the push luck elements. It was a mess. And it's funny how, like, you know, someone, you can get all a bunch of praise and then the game just falls flat for you. So like, that's like, it could happen all sorts of ways, you know, how Tastemakers kind of like, you know what? And I'm not even going to finish that point because I had a lot of folks, and I'll turn to the forums right now. At least David and his Game Night forum, and how people kind of responded to that, because I'm talking about how Tastemakers kind of influence us. And you were talking, especially early, how like a tastemaker influenced you in terms of your board gaming taste. A lot of folks were like, kind of, you know, they were more on the other side. They're more like, you know, they were able to kind of take what tastemakers do. And by tastemaker, I'm using that word. It's like a, you know, very kind of lingo-y word. It's like an influencer, you know, a person who kind of, you know, opens the gateway, you know, a kind of maybe a little bit of a gatekeeper type thing. For a certain kind of hobby. So like, it could be anything. It could be like, you know, Anthony was talking about movies and all this other stuff. So, you know, I can read through a couple of them. John Digman, sorry about that. Saying generally tastemakers give me an idea of what is new and what I missed. I tend to look into better yet play before actually purchasing. Good on you, John. That doesn't always happen, but basically using the Tastemaker as like a Reader's Digest for board games. Like, I'm not sure how much you do that kind of anymore, Anthony. But like, is that a role that a tastemaker can play in a positive way?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, more than a lot of media, there are so many board games coming out right now.
Oh yeah.
Like, you look at the video game landscape and maybe there's a few hundred a year, and board games there's a few thousand a year. So if you really want to stay on top of what's coming out, you kind of need that. Not to toot our own horn here, but you know, like, we're providing a service, right? And I think that's helpful, but at the same time, yeah, it's good to use that as kind of a resource, not necessarily as a buyer's guide.
So moving on through the comments, we had Amy Pearson. I'm not sure someone else's opinion affects my opinion of the game, though the description of the game / gameplay certainly does. With most of the podcast, I'll be subconsciously waiting to hear about something multiple times. And each time I might hear something different that leans me one way or the other. Wingspan, which we talked about in the last episode, I haven't played it, but we had the designer on, would be an example. First time I heard about it, I wasn't that interested, but hearing about it again, hearing how the birds have different behaviors to add to the strategy caught my attention. So I think that's probably the best way that tastemakers kind of do it, is they open up, like they're gatekeepers, and they open up a broad stretch of mechanisms, which is why our reviews are so long. We don't just like talk, give a couple of like drips about a game. Like we really want you, like even if you don't pay attention, like I've heard a lot of feedback that like people don't listen to the whole thing of what we talk about. They just kind of like picking up stuff. And if they hear like a buzzword or if they hear, something that we're really excited about or something we're repeating a bunch of times, they'll take note of that, which, okay, cool. I think that, that's probably the best way a tastemaker can kind of go about their thing. However, it can go kind of wrong when tastemakers kind of aren't gatekeepers, when they actually, do influence things. And I'm going to go to my man here, Chris Jarvis. Chris Jarvis, tastemakers obviously drive the success of a game, which I think is a shame because they nearly always differ from my taste, which means the games that I like get kicked in the dirt and the ones that I dislike thrive. If anything ever drives me from the hobby, it will be that. And I asked him for an example, and he gave the example of Forbidden Sky. So Forbidden Sky, the third in the Forbidden series from Matt Leacock, I was wondering why it didn't do as well. Nobody put it on their list. And then, hey, the Dice Tower panned it. Tom didn't like it. Z didn't like it. And Z's the co-op guy, Matt Leacock guy, and he didn't like it. So it may just have been that those reviews, like that review or their negative opinion, just shut down access to the game for a lot of people. And reading through the YouTube comments, I know people are going to be like, oh, don't listen to that, make your own judgments about a game. But reading the YouTube comments, there was so many like, oh, thank you for giving me that review. Now I know I can pass on this game. Or now I know I don't have to buy this game. And that's kind of where tastemaking can go a little bit wrong, when either a positive review makes you waste your money or when a negative review makes you avoid a game that you might actually like. I like Forbidden Sky. I think they're totally wrong. I really, really enjoyed it. I love the puzzle of it. It was the best puzzle. Like there were certain parts where like Z would describe something. It's like, oh, and this could happen. I'm like, just dude, learn to play. I mean, you can totally plan around what you were complaining around. So I'm glad that I didn't see it, or otherwise that would have affected my approach to it. And so for people who kind of think that, oh, I can resist a tastemaker, it's out there, man. It's a thing. This does affect our hobby and it affects the access that we have to games.
Yeah, I mean, I don't pan a lot of games personally, but
yeah, we're not gonna talk about games that we're gonna pan.
No, exactly.
We self-select those out.
But as a podcast, we've panned stuff overall. Like we had a dust up with Galaxy Trucker a while back. Chris really dug into that one, and a lot of people jumped to its defense. We talked about Lewis and Clark and some issues we had with that game, and you can still find it on BGG. There's a ridiculously long thread arguing with Daniel about that one. It happens. I welcome it. I'm glad people and especially if there's a specific reason they think that we got something wrong or whatever. But even if not, it's good to have those discussions because it shows everybody else that we are again just objective. It's a subjective thing. We're not giving objective final. This game is good or bad. That's not the point of review. It's criticism, and then everybody has their own opinions. So I think it's important, if you're listening to podcasts or watching videos, that you understand who has tastes like yours and try to balance the decisions you make based on those opinions accordingly. And if you can't find people who have opinions like yours, then, maybe ignore them all. So
and what you said at the beginning, I think is kind of to me, the most important thing is we don't have a lot of time. Like, I mean, there's so much, like hobbies in general have just exploded, so many movies, so many games, so many different interests. Like if I didn't have Alan Sepwall in my life, I wouldn't know what to watch on TV, and at the beginning when I was first getting into games, if I didn't have like Tom and, Rado and some of these other people, I wouldn't know what to play. And I know a lot of our listeners, well, maybe not our listeners, because we have a pretty, our listener, hardcore gamers, but in the wider Dice Tower universe or wherever else, like they depend on these tastemakers to open up the games for them. And that's not a bad thing. It's not blind. It's not like we're sheep or anything. It's just we don't have time. I let somebody else do it. We do that in our real life all the time. It's like we wait for recommendations from friends and trusted people. And I guess what I'm saying is like try to avoid the extreme behavior. Try not to let a tastemaker push you to an extreme behavior. Tastemakers are there to nudge, right? If you are on the fence about a game and somebody that you trust points you in a certain direction, then definitely take that into account. but I think tastemakers go wrong when that their opinion gives you a hard push towards either I'm not playing this, I won't like it, or ooh, I got to go buy that right now. And I know we're excited, and we're passionate gamers, and we get our emotions flamed. But I think that's probably the best way to approach tastemakers. They're nudgers.
Yeah, I think so. The best way overall to decide what you want to play, what you want to buy, is to experience it. And not everybody has the opportunity to do that. I, for example, go to a game night once every couple weeks, maybe, and then most of the time, other than that, is just getting in stuff for review. If I wasn't doing this podcast, if I wasn't deeply, deeply into the hobby, I don't know that I would get to experience a lot of these new games. And so I would definitely heavily rely on, media to inform me of what's coming out. So right. I think that's an important point, and use it to guide you, but not necessarily to make up your mind for you.
Right. All right. So hopefully we've covered that well. Thank you very much, Every Night is Game Night group members, for participating and pitching in some. I have more comments here, but we are reaching, a decent amount of time on this episode. So I think we're good on that. Believe me, we have more discussion to come. So I know I'm going to step on Anthony's outro a little bit, but please join Every Night is Game Night Facebook group, our Twitter, engage us in the conversation. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution of trying to be a little bit more active. On social media, I'm not the biggest fan of for various reasons, but people are on it. There's a lot of positive to it, and I want to try to use it as much as possible. Anthony over on BGA always has the question of the week, so go ahead and look at that as well. Sometimes some of those questions turn into real discussions and wherever we are. So yeah, please take advantage. We're going to try to be out there as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the fun of it, and seeing the number of people answer those questions is always really cool. And we've definitely cribbed episode ideas for both podcasts from people's responses. So,
absolutely.
All right, guys, that's going to go and be everything for this week. As Jason said, make sure you hit up all the different spots that we hang out. Every Night is Game Night on Twitter, ENGN_podcast on Facebook and in the group. EveryNightIsGameNight.com. You can find all the show notes, reviews, top 10 lists. Recently, the top 100 list over on BGA side, upcoming awards here for Every Night is Game Night, all the good stuff. But for this week, that's going to go ahead and be everything. So until next time, go ahead and grab a solo game off the shelf, and let's make every night game night.
Bye, everybody.